Hello and welcome. Thanks for popping into my channel. If you are new here, please like and subscribe for me. If you find this content helpful, smash that notification bell so that you don't miss out on the next video. Comment below with anything that you guys need help with or topics you'd like me to cover, and check out my website, consultingninja.tech. With that out of the way, let's get to it. We are going to create a login component in SvelteKit, and I'm also going to show you guys how to set up a store for holding our users' information and a token that we'll ping a backend with in a different video. So let's get right into it. We need to do an npm create svelte at latest. Get our project going here. Let's just call this login, and we want a skeleton project. And we can skip the TypeScript and all the other fluff for now. Let's just focus on the login component and the store. We do need to install all of our node modules, so we need to move into the folder we just created and then do an npm install. I use different versions of Node for different things, so I would also point out here that the SvelteKit uses the very latest version of Node, so I need to say NVM use 18. NVM use 18 to make sure that I'm using Node 18 plus. And then I can do an npm install. If you're not familiar with NVM, you can install it using Homebrew if you're familiar with that. NVM is a Node version manager. It lets you install all kinds of versions of Node. I use it because there's legacy applications that I still develop on that require older versions of Node, and then things like SvelteKit that require the very latest. And NVM allows me to seamlessly switch between those, just like I showed you there, just simply by running the NVM use and then whatever version of Node you'd like to use. And then to install one and have Node the NVM manage it, you just say NVM install and whatever version you'd like. So it's pretty straightforward, pretty cool tool. Check it out. I'll leave a link in the description to that for you guys as well. Okay, so we have all of our node modules installed. We can clear some of that out. And then let's get into the code, our IDE. I'm going to be using Visual Studio as per usual. So here I have my login, and let's just get in here inside of source, routes, and inside of page. Let's get right to the coding. And what I want to do here is, let's get rid of this. We don't need that. Let's create a script. And what we're going to do is import user from /user. And we're going to import the login component as well that we're about to create. lib/login.svelte. And this does not exist yet, so we're going to get some red squiggles probably. And I'm going to also make a piece of little reactive statement here, a little reactive, svelte reactive. And do an is logged in, and this will equal $user equals no, false, otherwise true. So a little reactive statement that's going to flip logged in back and forth depending on if there is a value for the user inside of that piece of store state. And then let's make a little function here that just const logout equals like this, and user.update. That way I can show you guys how to log a user out as well, like this. And this function is going to, once we set up the user store, this function will log a user out by setting the value of that store back to null. Now let's make some markup to render here. Let's create an H1 and just say, welcome to Consulting Ninja. You obviously can do whatever you'd like. And I'll do a if statement here. If is logged in, then what we want to do is we want to make an H2 that says thank you $user.first. Oops, forgot the dot. User.firstName for logging in. like that. And then let's put an input here. Type equal button, value equal to logout. On click, then we'll run that logout function. Otherwise, else, let's make an H2 and say, would you like to log in? And then we'll render that login component. Like so. There we have our basic page. This would be a home page. Since we're in SvelteKit, it is the base plus page.svelte inside of routes, and so this would be the home page. Let's also create a plus layout.svelte like that. And what we're going to do in here is just do a tiny bit of styling. So let's just make a div with a class of main-content, and then inside of there put your slot, and then let's make a style and say .main-content display flex direction column, and align items center. That's going to keep everything in the middle for us, just help it look a little bit better. Okay, so now we need to create our store. So inside of source, let's do a new file and call this user.js. And this part's actually going to be pretty straightforward. All that we're going to have in here is import writable from svelte/store. And then const user equals writable, and we're going to initialize this to null, because we do not want to have a user, we do not want to have a value there unless the user is logged in. So great, now we have a store for storing that stuff. Let's go ahead and create a login component that we can render that will let a user, give the user the forms to fill out to log in. So inside of source, create a new folder, and I like to stick to what SvelteKit likes, kind of their default stuff they got going on. And so I'll create that lib folder, and then inside of here we want a new file and call this login.svelte. And what we're going to do in here is make a script right away. In fact, this will probably be more script than it will anything else. And let's import that store. So import user from /user.js. And then let's let username equal to empty string. Let password equal to empty string. Let current error equal to no. Now let's open that up a bit and make a login function. So const login equals anonymous function. And what I'm going to use the .then syntax here. You can use async await if you'd like, whatever you'd prefer. I just want to make sure that we're covering all of our bases here. Sometimes in videos I see online, people use async await and they don't deal with everything that really needs to be dealt with in a situation like this. So part of the reason why I am using the .then syntax is to be very clear for you guys what all needs to be handled in the situation. So we want to do a fetch, and I'm going to have this backend running. We're already about 11 minutes into this video, so we won't have time to do all of this in one shot. I have been breaking this up into a few just to make it easier to watch. But I'm going to have a backend running at this URL. This would be whatever you're going to have. It's just going to be a Node.js that's hooked up to a Mongo database. The Mongo database is going to contain our users. Method is going to be post because we're going to be sending data. And then headers, we need to add some headers in here. Now, this is going to trigger a CORS response from the browser. The browser is going to send an options pre-flight request that your backend will need to be able to deal with in order to receive any of the actual fetch. So the way that that works nowadays is that if you, as soon as you get into basically any post request, there's what's called a simple request, and it's kind of a moving target, but basically you can look at it as anything outside of a GET request with nothing else attached is going to be outside of what they consider simple these days. And that's going to trigger this pre-flight. The pre-flight comes from the browser. It's not something you can stop. And it's going to be an options request that asks the backend some pieces of information. And I show how to deal with that from the backend perspective in the Node.js video that I've already shot. I will link to that video in the description of this one if you're curious to see how to do that. But rest assured, you will be triggering that with this request, as with most these days. So content type, application, JSON. We don't need, why did I put except? We don't need this. That's not actually required. And then we need to add a body. This is where we're going to be sending the data to the backend. And we're going to do a JSON.stringify. And what we're going to stringify is an object like this. Username is going to be username, and password is going to equal password. We'll pull those out of our form. All right, like that. And then we want to do a side of here. We want to do a dot then response. We want to take that response, and what we want to do here is if response.status less than 299, return response.json. Like that. We can put it all on one line. Now, one of the other things here is that 299 is basically anything under 300 is a normal status OK. That's why we want to check this. If it's not an OK status, then you want to do some sort of error. So let's do another if. If response.status greater than 299, then we want to set our error, current error equal something not quite right with server response. Now, server by default will have an option for forcing the browser to use a cached response if the value it's requesting is the same. I also show how to deal with that in a different video. We don't want to be sending cached responses. You would in production. However, from a client-side perspective, most clients are going to be looking for a status of less than 300, and when you tell the browser to use the cached version, the response is like 300 or 304, so that would trigger an error in most clients, as it would in this one. If it's in that 300 range, then you need to check, you'd have additional logic in here to check what the actual code was. So then we want to do something with the data. Now we have the data, we know for sure it's successful at this point. You can console.log it out here, but as long as the data is received, then we want to user.update value, and we want the value to equal ... data. Spread it out like that, and then we can catch the error. Catch. This catch error, This pretty much only triggers if the server's down. So if there's any sort of response, it's not technically an error from the fetch perspective. It is just a response that you're not happy with. So this would be like a server down error, and then the status error, that's a different error. You're not going to get an actual error there. You are in fact going to get a response. It just might not be the response that you want. So that's why you have additional logic there. Here, this is well, big problems. All right, what we want to do here is let's just assign error. Let's assign current error to the error object. So this would be big problems. And then you can console.log it if you want to look at it. Error logging in. And then the error that was sent back. All right, so that is our login function. We can get rid of some of this extra space. And now let's go ahead and render out our form. So let's make a form on submit. This pipe is really sweet. Anytime you have a DOM listener, you can add this pipe, and then there's modifiers that you can add in here. And what we want to do is prevent default. We don't want the page to re-render, so we prevent default on this form submission. We do want to run the login function. All right, and then let's just make a div and then have a label for username like that, and then an input type equals text, ID of username, and let's just go ahead and bind value to username. That way we always have that what we want. And then we can just copy and paste. And what we're going to do here would be just the password. So for the label is going to be for the password. This will be password. Like that. And then this is going to be password and an ID of password. And this will be password. So we'll bind to password. The label is for password. This input, the type is password, the ID is password, and the value is password. Password, 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 password. And then we just need to make a button with a type of submit. And then just say submit. Let's go ahead and fire this up, and I'll just flip back and forth for you guys manually. The next video I will show you guys how to hook this all together. So let's do an npm run dev -- open. So this is what we have so far. We have, since the user is not logged in, our home page is rendering out would you like to log in, and then the login component. Now I'm going to manually flip this to give you guys, let's flip this backwards, so we'll reverse our logic. And then we'll have to take this out for now, give that a save. And this is what it will say if they are logged in. Now, I hope that this video has been helpful for you guys so far. In the next video, I'm going to put this all together with the Mongo database that I've previously created, link in the description, and the Node.js backend API that I've previously created, link in the description for that as well. And we'll hook all of those pieces together, and I'll show you guys how to take a username and password and return a token that we can use to authenticate a user really is who they say they are. Stay tuned for that video, and as always, have a great day.